Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
It's great to see you all.
Michael, I just love this place. They are so nice.
That's music to my ears and to many other folks too, Sarah.
It is a great place to live. I'm so glad I made the change.
Well,
the Athena I loved the Athena, but it didn't serve any food. And looking down the road, I said, I will need to have meals where I live.
Indeed. Yes, it's a good planning, and it's a great resource. And if they can come up with matzo ball soup for Friday nights.
That's what I asked for. But they served it at noon. And I said, I like it in the evening, the matzo ball soup.
Indeed. Well, so we only have a short time. I don't know if other folks are going to join us, but I can see on the upper right-hand corner, if anybody does come, I can admit them. But I'm going to start to record these sessions, Sarah, so that we can play them later on channel 80.
Great.
So this week, I'm going to start with this melody. And you have the handout for Shabbat, Mishpatim, the Torah portion for this week?
Good.
Okay. Here's the melody. So we are in the Torah at Mount Sinai. Last week was the Torah portion of Yitro, which brought us there with Moses ascending the mountain and God coming to Moses and the actual 10 commandments. This week, the Torah portion is the continuation of the Mishpatim, the rules and regulations beyond the 10 commandments. And it's a lengthy list of rules, from what to do with your slave to what to do if your ox misbehaves and gores your neighbor's ox, and a whole length of things. I'm not going to deal with the particulars of those rules today, but I'm going to pick out some of the interesting highlights that some of our sages along the way have pointed to. And the first one is a real curiosity, Sarah, where the children of Israel respond to Moses, we shall do and we shall listen. Na'aseh v'nishma. And that is something that sometimes perplexes us. Why is it that the children of Israel don't say, we'll listen and then we'll do? What's going on here that the order is reversed? And I've got two offerings of commentary here. Do you want to read the first one from the Sfat Emet?
First, we set right with our actions. Then we listen. After we hear, there comes the time to correct our deeds even more by the power of that verse of Torah. then we deserve to hear yet more of the inward Torah found in Sfat Emet.
Sfat Emet is a great rabbi of the Hasidic tradition of Eastern Europe. And the Hasidic rabbis were very mindful of what's going on inside of us, inwardly, psychologically. So I found this to be quite interesting, that last sentence, then we deserve to hear yet more of inward Torah. In other words, we have to do some preparatory work first. How does that strike you? Is that something like anything that you've ever can compare that to or think?
No, the only thing I think about is you have to be open. I often think God is with me, but people need to be open to receive him. And if you're not open, it goes by you.
Well, I think you've got the essence of it. What is it that opens us? In fact, I think that the other gems that we will look at today all have that in mind. There's a pearl of wisdom, if you will, inside each one of us. How do we get to it? How do we open the clam, as it were, to get to that pearl? And so the Sfat Emet is saying we have to do groundwork first. We set our intentions in the actions that we do, and then we listen some more and see what was working and what wasn't in order to refine. But just by acting, just by doing, we make ourselves more worthy to hear more, to learn more, to discover. It's so, there's a couple of things that this makes me think of. One of them is that the thought that I think sometimes many of us have is that I need to work on myself. I need to get things right. We're welcoming Rachel. Good morning. Can you hear me? Hello. Hi there. Good to have you with us, Rachel.
Thank you.
So we've just read the first.
What's your last name?
Rachel Cabal.
Cabal.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
And Rachel, I'm recording our session this morning for
wonderful. And I have my print off today.
Yes. So we're contemplating or mulling over this verse in the Torah. We shall do and we shall listen, because it's counterintuitive to some ways of looking and thinking at perfecting ourselves as human beings. Why isn't that we don't just, the children of Israel don't just open their ears to listen and absorb the 10 commandments and then do, but they say we're going to do and then listen. And I was just about to recall somebody I knew who I think speaks for many of us, at least some of the time, the idea that I'm not ready yet to go out into the world and make a difference. I have work to do on myself before I'm ready. And this is telling us, no, the world is here right now, and you are here right now. So come together with the world and start to do, but with an open mind to hear and listen and review what's going on in order to then go deeper, as the Sfat Emet, the great rabbi from Eastern Europe, says. Then we become worthy of hearing inward Torah, more wisdom. I have another commentary here. Sarah, would you read that second paragraph?
A midrash states the angels were so impressed with this that they came down from heaven and placed 2 crowns on the head of each Israelite, one for doing and one for seeking to understand.
Which reminds me of the other midrashic image of the angels coming down and giving us an extra soul during the Sabbath, which is also a little perplexing and challenging. What does that mean? One soul is amazing. What does it mean to be gifted an extra soul during those 24 plus hours of Shabbat? So, any thoughts from either of you on this?
I had never heard that before.
Me either. I don't know what that means.
Well, the Midrash is such a rich collection of ideas and images, and sometimes contradicting. They contradict each other. There are a multitude of possibilities, of ways of reading, and each of them is accorded some holiness in our tradition. But something else occurred to me about the first interpretation of the Sfat Emet, about doing first and then listening. And it was kind of a surprise to realize this, but the very work that I have been doing for the past 10 years of training chaplains in the field of clinical pastoral education, known as CPE. The educational model is called action, reflection, new action. Whoa, it's actually the same as this Torah verse.
Yes.
The idea is that we learn by doing. But so when I get new student chaplains, sometimes they're actually scared. They want to do this. They're seminary students, or some of them are clergy, but the seminary students may be scared of taking the step that, you mean you're sending me out to do a pastoral visit now? Yes, this is the moment. We'll talk about it beforehand, and we'll talk about it afterwards. And we don't have to be perfect. I'm not perfect when I do a pastoral rabbinical visit, but all of us have tremendous riches at our fingertips if we reflect on what we've done. And the pastoral education students, the chaplain interns, what we ask them to do is to write out a whole verbatim description of a visit for me to review, to see what they said. And it doesn't matter if they make it up, because I can tell when I look at this exchange between people, when a patient or a resident says something to the chaplain and the chaplain responds and changes the subject. Like a patient may say, I'm just sick to death. I'm scared. I'm angry. Where is God? And the chaplain may say, oh, let's pray, instead of hearing more about what that's like. So that's an invitation after the fact to sit with the chaplain intern and talk it through and look at what's so scary and how do we enter into that space and be present in a meaningful way. So and then you go out and then you do a new action from that reflection. You writing about it, talking about it, reflecting on it, answering questions, and then the world starts to open, your horizon starts to open, and you can then become more skilled and more courageous and more aware as you go out. So I think that is some of what's going on here with this work at Mount Sinai. We shall do and we shall listen. But there is a distinction for being there, and the angels are rewarding people for just hearing and trying and being willing. Being willing is another element of the beauty here. Let me take you further into a different nugget from this Torah portion. Sarah, would you read number 2?
You shall be a people of holiness unto me. A person has to seek out holiness in order to serve God, not just in order to be a holy person. The saintly and the sanctimonious are but a hairbreadth apart. Remember, it is for God the life of all worlds and all creatures, that you are to be holy, not for yourself.
Is that interesting? Rachel, what's...
I'm laughing because I don't, maybe I'm just sniggering a little bit, but I think that whatever a religion, many of us can become, the word sanctimonious is just lovely. And I'm being very sarcastic. We can always see folks who are trying to show off their faith or hover it over someone else, or and what is not happening at that time is really what God is seeking for us to do. It doesn't matter the religion. I think that sometimes people are looking for points with God and also points with other of our faith. So that makes me laugh because it's visible all the time. And so here's where I have to stop, because I have to stop sniggering about it. I have to, because that will lead me to start saying, oh, they're just for show. And then I lose my vision of what that person's real faith is. So rather than being led into judgment about that, I need to just be more in conversation about it so that we're still together, so that I'm not spreading us apart. Does that make sense?
That is sophisticated. Thank you for that double sharing of experience. Both.
I didn't know if that would make sense, but that is something that I struggle with. When I see someone being sanctimonious, my first instinct as a human being, I'm sorry, is to go, I don't have time for that. But what I really need to be saying is, how can I be with this person still? How can I learn from that still? How can I not be judgmental?
Because we may encounter that person in any number of roles in our lives. Sometimes we can say, okay, and move on. But sometimes we're stuck working together with the person.
Correct.
And I'm reminded when take it outside of the religious context. When I was a law student beginning at Columbia Law School, I was interested possibly in going to public interest law. And I met somebody, I think ahead of me in the law school, who was on a prestigious public interest law journal. Sanctimonious. Oh my gosh. The holier than thou. Yes, I am in this role and I am a gift to our community. I was appalled. I was like, I have to get away from this person. Sometimes a person can, forgive me for using the word reek of sanctimony. And it's even dangerous when you combine it in a role with some authority, whether it's a clerical role in religion or a role in an organization, when one views oneself as God's gift. So interesting to me, and I haven't put the name here, but this is the Spot Emmet again, who's making this comment that sanctimonious and sacred, saintly, are so close together. There's just something that is not in the right groove. And, I think all of us can fall into this. It's not just an us and them. Sometimes we see people who are, you can really, really palpably feel that. But other times, any of us can fall into a moment where we think we've got it right. And
me.
Yeah, me too.
I admit it all the time. And I have to stop myself. I have to do like a filter and say, what did I just say? That was not inclusive. That was awful. And so then I will back up and either apologize or just stop myself.
To catch oneself is a great thing. Sarah, any feelings? Do you have any feelings about this part of our discussion? The encounters with sanctimony?
No, I must say one thing, Michael. You are touching on some things that other Torah study classes have not touched on. So I feel like there is no repetition here. I'm getting some brand new thoughts, and I commend you for it. Thank
you, Sarah. It may not be new for everybody, and we're going to broadcast this later, so every viewer has a different experience, but our conversation is richer for the different experiences we can bring to the text and how it's challenging us. I think that's where my excitement about studying Torah comes, is seeing how it plays out in our own hearts and in our own lives.
It's just a different field, this Torah study, than other Torah studies.
Well, that'll fit for Passover then. Why is this morning different than all other mornings?
Which you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Let's move on to the same verse, which in the Hebrew is Ve'anshe Kodesh Tihu Li, and you shall be a people of holiness unto me. There are several other different perspectives on this very same verse. Rachel, would you read the next one?
Number three.
Number three.
You shall be a people of holiness unto me, which means, I'm sorry, I cannot read the Hebrew, but it means becoming a new being. By means of Torah, it is possible for anyone to bring about renewal.
This is, to me, I think the next several interpretations are going to come back to this, but it's a version of being born again. And that's, quite frankly, as I grew up and I didn't know, I was not heading to become a rabbi when I was younger, but born again was just very foreign to me, very Christian. We lost Sarah.
Oh no.
I think she knows how to get back on, so I'll just keep it on to bring her in.
See, for me, born again, growing up a Lutheran, born again was, it was foreign to me as well. That was a part of the Foursquare Church, or what they call evangelical. Now, I consider myself an evangelical Lutheran, but it's not the same word that any other Christian would think of. But, of course, born again was that you had to, at a certain age, because you weren't allowed to earlier, decide that Christ was in your life. Well, what if you grew up in the church and you were never not that? So the whole born again movement is extremely foreign to mainline Christian churches, Lutherans, Episcopals, Presbyterians, Methodists. It's just not that part. However, we kind of have that experience in many times of the church year. So at Easter, at Lent,
right,
at everything, but there's not this one moment where suddenly you were damned and now you're going to heaven. There was never a time like that in my life.
There's a very interesting parallel to what you're sharing, which is that we have these liturgical moments in our calendar in the Jewish tradition that bring us back to the Sinai moment, where we are face to face with the moment of revelation, and that chance to open our hearts and come in again and be made new. There's toward our high holy days, we have the concept of tshuva, return, and there's a term called a Baal tshuva, who is one who makes this return, this dedication. And that is, the question, I think, is dedication. is one able to open the eyes and the heart and embrace the act of dedication to take the challenge, to be new? And that, you know what this entails, actually? The hardest part of this, probably, I think, for any of us, Jews or Christians, is to forgive ourselves for what we are not.
100%, I agree. Yes.
In order to liberate our powers and our passion and to act with full-heartedness. Because if we're carrying our burdens of what we have, all of our failures, we can't show up the same way.
I agree. It's interesting to see that parallel, because I think at the heart, human beings are, especially in one particular society, we're all living in Dallas, for example, or in the United States. We have a shared background of how we try to be successful, or how we try to support our families and all of that kind of thing. But I think that looking at different faiths, I think that what is at the heart is what you were just talking about, is how do we, as human beings who are psychological, how do we forgive ourselves? And then how does that relate to our faith as well? So I think that's that's something that's so connecting. And we all have that stuff. I like to call it stuff that,
I don't know that word, stuff.
Stuff. And, that we aren't happy with ourselves about, or
is that in the past, is that a word, stuff? Is that from German?
That is stuff and shit. It's stuff.
Stuff. Of course, stuff.
I told you, I made it up. It's stuff.
Well, let me share one or two more points before we close this teaching. And I haven't got Sarah back, but
I know, I'm so sorry.
We're on the same sentence of you shall be a people of holiness to me. And now we're going on to another place where it says, the Lord said to Moses, I'm reading under number 4 now.
And I'm looking at mine.
Moses, come up to me on the mountain and wait there. And I will give you the stone tablets with the teachings and commandments which I've inscribed to instruct them, the people. So there's one simple word there in the Hebrew, come up to me on the mountain and be there, sham, in this chapter here, in this verse. And so the Sfat Emet, this sage, we turn to again, he says that indicates that being there, that Moses was becoming a new being. He's using that to corroborate that there's this transformative change that happens. And that like the ministering angels, at this point, Moses is up on Sinai and the clouds are around him. So the rabbis envision Moses garbed in the clouds, like the angels, as imagery for this newness. Now, another sage in our tradition from 500 years ago, Abarbanel, Rabbi Isaac ben Yehuda Abarbanel in Portugal, he said, literally, be there means be something new there. Receive there a new nature like that of the beings on high. And I'm going to skip down to the final thought here from the Zohar, which is a book of mysticism, which goes back even earlier to the 12th century. And the Zohar says that word, sham, be there, read that with a different vowel, a different addition of dots under the letter. Because the Torah has no vowels, which leads to the wordplay and creativity of what could this say? And so the Zohar is reading this as Shem instead of Sham, meaning the name of God. Moses, instead of be there, Moses is now part of the holy name.
Becomes a part of the holy name.
So the transformation is so complete. Moses is such a leading figure in his ability to dedicate and the openness of his heart, that he is, well, I think we would say, unified with God, at least on the mountain. And then he's living the next 40 years with the Israelites in this state of partially unified with God and partially brought down to the mundane difficulties and challenges of leading the people as a human being.
I see. Very interesting. Would you say wholly divine and wholly human, or is there? How do you describe
I would
Moses?
say that the prophet, and Moses being the greatest of the prophets, is privileged to be with God and to take on this holiness, and is a vessel for sharing it with the people, but that he is, I think that the stories of the Torah tell us that he's struggling with the human burdens, this complaining people, this stiff-necked people. And
yes,
he's not holy. He's not ever completely God-like. This is a moment of unification. And I think that guides all of our religious the sages can yearn, or any of us who's dedicated can yearn for moments of unification, but not to become celestial beings ourselves.
That is, thank you for that. That is a great explanation. I've never been able to ask anyone that question about how do you see, I know that Moses is revered, but I didn't know where that reverence laid, whether it was, a part of being, it sounds more to me, and tell me if I'm saying this correctly, that you're saying that Moses was able to have a moment of understanding and revelation with God that then you can then study, but that you don't see Moses as ever having been fully divine.
I would say correct? Extended moments.
Okay, yes.
But I would not say, I think his 40 years of leading the people in the wilderness with the continual meetings with God in the tent of meeting.
Correct.
Were a place that no other human being has gone like that.
Correct.
In a Jewish tradition. So no one comes closer. And yet we would not say that he was part of God.
Right, or has the knowledge of God, or
Well, God was putting knowledge into him, and he was sharing it. So yes. So let me close, because we have a tight schedule, and I'm going to close with the melody that I started with, which this week is. And Rachel, there are words to this chant, and they fit the question you just asked. The words are Ein od milvado. This is from the Saturday morning Shabbat liturgy. There is no other beside him. So Ein od milvado, Ein od milvado, Ein od milvado. Thank you.
melody is familiar to me. So it's very familiar. So I was humming along. So thank you, Rabbi. I will check in to see what happened with our friend. And but thank you. Thank you for always including me.
Always welcome, Rachel. I'm going to take this recording and I'll send the link to you and the other folks at Midtown Park, as well as to Willow Bend.
All right. Wonderful.
And good to see you. Have a good, safe day.
I will do it. You do as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.